Suzanne Nossel and Los Angeles Executive Director, Michelle Frankie.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Suzanne Nossel. I'm the CEO of PEN America. I'm really thrilled to be back in LA for the 2019 LitFest Gala, one of my favorite nights of the year. So, I wish I could announce to you tonight that the state of our freedom of speech is strong, but it isn't. Free speech is under attack by a poisonous political environment. Words are being drained of their meaning. People talk about truth and fiction as opposites, but they're not. Fiction, including the extraordinary stories we celebrate tonight, is a path to the truth. The opposite of truth is deceit, and deceit and disinformation cheapen the value of words. They sow doubt about what is to be believed. And deceit is becoming normalized as major online platforms throw up their hands and argue that accepting paid political ads that include deliberate falsehood is all in a day's work. And that's not the only threat to free speech we face. We have a president who uses a wink and a nod to encourage his rally-goers to rough up protesters and journalists. We have a White House that menaces reporters and press outlets, that revokes press passes, kicks journalists out of the Rose Garden, and threatens to cut off newspaper subscriptions to employees of the federal government. That's why PEN America has filed a lawsuit against the president under the First Amendment. We're challenging his threats and acts of retaliation against journalists and the news media. But let's face it, it's not just the White House or social media. Protesters on college campuses are shouting down speakers. Immigration activists call to boycott the Harvard Crimson for doing the work of journalism and offering ICE a chance to comment on a story. We have online mobs who go after commentary, art, and even comedy with censorious zeal. So right now, we can't count on our government to stand up for our rights, not here and not around the world. So that job falls to all of us as citizens and as civil society. And that's where PEN America and all of you come in. We have to be the voice of reason in these debates, to hold our government officials and tech companies accountable, to organize and campaign to ensure that treasured principles are not trampled. And I'm pleased to say the state of our organization is strong. PEN America defends writers, artists, journalists, and protects free expression rights in the US and across the globe. Through sustained advocacy, we support those who are threatened or imprisoned for their expression. People like Saudi writers and women's rights activists Loujain Al-Hatul and Nouf Abdelaziz. You'll hear more about them tonight. And just 2 months ago, we celebrated the release of Ukrainian filmmaker Oleg Sentsov. He was our 2017 Freedom to Write honoree and was sentenced to 20 years in a Russian penal colony. He's now walked free and back in Kiev. Our published research and advocacy on issues like disinformation, book bans in American prisons, and social media censorship in China shaped the debate and catalyzed change. We're a national leader in fighting to keep college campuses open to the full range of both people and ideas. We're working in newsrooms and writers' rooms all over the country to safeguard creators from online harassment. And just last month, we announced that alongside our offices in New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles, we've set up chapters in Birmingham, Alabama, Detroit, Dallas, Austin, Tulsa, and the Piedmont region of North Carolina. Because if we're depending on civil society to uphold the rights and values we treasure, we cannot win that battle by fighting only in Washington think tanks, New York universities, or even here at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Los Angeles. So we have our work cut out for us at PEN America, and there's no end in sight. And that's why I'm so thrilled and grateful that all of you are here tonight to join with us in our mission to celebrate free expression and to stand with us in our mission to defend it. It's always a great pleasure to be here on the West Coast with my colleagues, and especially the renowned, infamous, and amazing Michelle Franke, Executive Director of our LA office.
Thank you, Suzanne, and welcome, everyone. Thank you. At the risk of dating myself, this is my 11th LitFest, a night that reminds me each year how strong our community of writers and advocates is. More than ever, PEN America is committed to appreciating the written word, the power of the individual voice, and the courage of those who resist silence even under threat. This evening, PEN America celebrates champions of free expression. Please join us in congratulating tonight's honorees. Our work is made possible by our staff, supporters, and each of you. We're especially grateful for our LA and Gala committees. Thank you all. The LitFest Gala is the Los Angeles office's largest fundraiser of the year. So a very special thank you has to go to Jamie Wolf and the Rosenthal Family Foundation. Jamie, please stand so everyone can cheer more for you. Here we go. Here's Jamie. I'd also like to thank our leadership sponsors, Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, Ted and Helen Boutros, Latham and Watkins, and Marvin and Carrie Putnam. And benefactors, Apple, Creative Visions Foundation, and the Muriel Palia Foundation. I also want to say thanks to our 2019 literary hosts. You'll all receive an amazing bag full of their books when you leave tonight. Everyone's favorite part of LitFest, book bags. So as many of you know, PEN America, there's a lot of rumbling about the book bags all of a sudden. People are like, can I get mine now? No. As many of you know, PEN America is the largest center in the PEN International Network. 2 beloved members of our LA community are currently serving in this global effort, and I want to recognize both of them. The first is David Francis. So David was recently elected to the PEN International Board, and also Eric Lax, who is a longtime fierce champion of PEN and the international treasurer. Eric is waving, he doesn't want to stand up. It's okay. There we go. Finally, you can find PEN America on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook tonight. Handles are posted around the ballroom. We really want to hear from you and to see your pictures. #LitFest Gala. So that's it from me.
So let's get this started. PEN America's Distinguished Leadership Award honors individuals who've made extraordinary contributions in furtherance of our mission to celebrate and defend freedom of expression. Thanks to the Muriel Palia Foundation for underwriting this award. The presenter for this award needs no introduction, but she gets a brief one nonetheless. She's an Emmy Award-winning comedian, actress, and television personality, as well as a tireless, fearless, indefatigable, and inspiring advocate for LGBTQ+ and First Amendment rights. Please welcome Kathy Griffin.
lot less trouble that way. All right, hi everybody, and welcome. This is the LitFest, which I thought was like the emoji, lit. So it means literary. And I think what the ladies don't get is that people were laughing about getting a book bag because nobody in LA reads. That was cute. That was cute. I love their optimism. I really do. All right. I am very honored to be here. Since my Trump scandal, I don't know if you heard about it, 2.5 years ago, yes, I'm currently blacklisted, you're welcome, and no one will take my calls, I know. But I have gotten to know more journos and more lawyers, and they're my new group of friends, honestly, and it's fantastic. They're like smart and shit, it's great. I didn't go to college, I did my first commercial at 15, sorry. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things. Some guy named Neil asked me if I could address how in comedy, well, this is something I feel, but I do feel like, you know, I'm not a comedy snob. I think it's great if I don't care if you're a prop comic or if you curse or don't. But I do have to say, I think that if you're a comic, you are actually derelict in your duty if you don't address this administration at all. I've never seen anything like it. I'm going to be 59 next week. I've been touring for decades. I've made fun of every president, every governor, alderman, never anything like this. So all the stuff that we thought was unprecedented was apparently just in like little hidden memos. Hey, does anybody here have Mark Zuckerberg's cell number? I need to call that piece of shit. I really... Regulate your ass, you fuck, with those empty alien eyes. And Sheryl Zuckerberg, what's her? No, Sheryl Sandberg, that one. Lean back in, bitch. I mean, lying. Do you see that video she made where she's lying? She made a lying video. I should file something. Hey, this is off the books. Let me be clear. This is off the books for any attorneys. I had them do like a special water for me because I'm nervous and my mouth gets dry. Hold on. A legend sips. All right, so... Just want to see if you're paying attention. All right, so I did my research on the Pen America situation because this is very highfalutin, and I was really excited to read about Liu Xiaobo. So may he rest in peace, a 2010 Nobel Peace Prize laureate who was an essayist and human rights activist in China. And when he was in jail, Penn used organized letter writing campaigns and elevated the voices of public intellectuals and writers to advocate for his freedom. And I know you guys worked with Rushdie, who, oh, that one's got stories. Oh, you want to hear something funny? Salman Rushdie was on my old show, My Life on the D-List, one time, and he told me as a joke, he goes, someday there's going to be a fatwa on your head. And there fucking is! He was right! Sometimes jokes are funny because they're real. All right, anyway, before I give the illustrious intro, of course I have to give him a little shit. His name is Ted Boutros, you've heard of him. And he works for the firm of Gibson, Dunn, and Kardashian. Now look, in fact, frankly, I just fired him. I'm gonna hire Kim. Chris is gonna make them all do like an Aunt Becky, and they're all gonna get into Harvard. I don't know if you saw, Kim did a video yesterday in a bikini trying to be Elle Woods from Legally Blonde. God love her. The point is, she's gotten through at least 10 or 11 pages of the first book, and she'll be fine in representing me pro bono. Now, I want to let you guys know, honestly, how vital your work is, just from a vulgar comedian, because, as I said, you know, I've been touring this country my whole life since I was about 18, and I've toured overseas when, you know, after I was off the no-fly list, and it's true. And so I made a docu-comedy called Kathy Griffin, A Hell of a Story, and the first third of it is a documentary just filmed with mine and my boyfriend's phones, because nobody would meet with me or finance anything. And then I hired a really great director, and the second 2/3 of the film are comedy concert, but they tell the story of the under oath interrogation. So I was under investigation by 2 federal agencies, the US Attorney's Office and the Secret Service. They opened the investigation without a call, without a warning, without anything. And my First Amendment attorney, not Ted, some fucking loser. It was Khloe Kardashian, called me. Literally? I'm like, yes, literally. Anyway, and so, you know, for someone like me to release a photo, and I had run the photo by my attorneys, and then to be somehow put into what I call the Trump wood chipper, and by the way, social media, without regulating themselves and without letting us regulate them like media organizations, they play a big part in personally what I went through. So within 12 hours, I went from being a working comedian to having not one single day of paid work ahead of me for the rest of my life, which is where I stand now. And it's been 2.5 years. So if you think it can't happen to you, let me tell you, it can. And never in my life, I remember watching Watergate when I was a kid, right? 3 networks and the rabbit ears, watched every minute. Never in my life did I think it would happen even in our generation. So I cold called a man named Ted Boutros, and I was like, I heard he's this big First Amendment guy, and I said, can you give me an hour? And I said, because I'm making this documentary, and I think what happened to me is historic, meaning for the first time in the history of this great country, never before has a sitting United States president used the power of the Oval Office, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. Somebody get that one, a mint julep on the porch. He misses his slaves, you guys. He really misses his slaves. It's a hard time for him. That's covered. That joke is covered. That's covered. And to be put under an investigation, to be put on the no-fly list, so obviously I was unemployable and uninsurable, as if I was a terrorist, to be investigated for months while I was getting death threats. So I'm not anti-government. I actually credit the FBI for saving my life, and I mean that. I don't hate the Department of Justice at all. I'm pretty sure the Secret Service didn't even really want to do the under oath interrogation that I went through, where my attorney did say, as many of you know, I'm learning these things, it wasn't the type of situation where if I screwed up, you know, he could pull me aside and we could sort of talk it out. And his words before the feds came in were, I love you, kid, but I wouldn't be doing my diligence if I didn't tell you. You fuck this up and you leave in cuffs, because conspiracy to assassinate the president holds a lifetime sentence. So I had to dig my way out of that, went through the interrogation, was exonerated, and I have a document from the government. So every time Orange Dumbass goes, I was exonerated, I'm like, I have a document. Where's your document? Like, they sent me did you know that shit? If you're exonerated, you get a letter. It's like a diploma. Anyway, so then, when I was finally able to work overseas, because I couldn't get any work here, oh, you know what I found out from traveling? Guess what people love in Reykjavik and Antwerp and Sydney and London and Singapore? They love a genuine American to stand on stage and tell them what the fuck is going on over here. Because they don't get it. This is not making sense to them. They don't get it. They don't get the gerrymandering and the what have you. Okay, so anyway, I was then put on the Interpol list. I think you guys know what that is. Maybe the Five Eyes list, I don't know. Every FOIA I've filed has been slow-walked. I still don't know what was on my passport, but I was detained at every airport. And I learned that contrary to conventional wisdom that was floating around at the time, and you guys probably know this to be true, even at LAX, they can, without cause, take your phone, take your SIM card, clone it, like they did with me at every single airport, and take your passport for an indeterminate amount of time. And you can't make a phone call because they haven't charged you with anything. So that's my new normal. And in this journey, I've gotten to know all this crazy stuff that now I hope more people get interested in. Because, you know, we're here in Hollywood, and a lot of my actress or actor friends feel like maybe they're engaged in politics, or maybe it doesn't have anything to do with them. I think the more we talk about it, the better. One of my messages is I'm all about voting down ballot, because it's fun to get excited about who's going to be president, but I think about all the judges he's been appointing, like the 30-year-old who's never tried a case. Jesus. Like, honestly, I'd rather have Kim, seriously. Kim would take it very seriously. She'd have a bikini, but there'd be a robe on top of it. She's professional. But you know, I just think it's important to keep telling the story, and everybody in this room probably has a story, because this is like nothing, like I said, I've never seen in my life, and it's all over the country, and it's what's happening to the hardcore MAGA folks is like an indoctrination, in my opinion, and that's what they accuse us of. So one of the things I find myself doing over and over is explaining why my photo was within the realm and the confines of the First Amendment, but that's different from yelling fire in a theater. So as you know, there's a kind of big push on the far right to try to conflate the First Amendment and let the Nazi folks and the 4chans and the 8chans and the 16chans, 32, I'm not sure how many chans there are, but that fucking message board scares me. And really, they're trying to turn the Constitution on its ear. So it's happening in real time. It's happening to people around you. As many of you know, there were more people arrested at the protests of the Trump inauguration than any inauguration in modern history. A lot of those people, most of them obviously, can't afford attorneys or bail. So that's where we are. And I was very grateful when Ted took the time to say, yes, I researched it. And in fact, your story is historic. So I vetted the fuck out of this movie, let me just tell you. So I appreciate the work of everyone in this room, and there is a real natural marriage, I think, between writing, music, expression, and the law. And the more we can tell our friends and neighbors the way the Constitution, in my case, my joke is, I know that First Amendment wall to wall. I don't know the other ones. But whenever you can communicate to folks how it affects them in their daily life, then they may be a little bit more open to that conversation. All right, I now have my favorite Ted Boutros quote. And it's very, I think Ted went to college and everything. So it's very smart and well written. All right, here we go. I'm quoting the great Ted Boutros, who he got back Brian Karem's press pass and Jim Acosta's. I know. Although, get this shit. All right, so remember when Ted was working on that one person in the Mueller case where they had to close the whole floor, and it was someone who didn't want to honor their grand jury subpoena, and then they closed the whole floor down, and that person's a mystery or that entity? Get this shit. I had Ted and the wife over for dinner, and he still didn't fucking tell me. I know, privilege. All right, here we go. The words of Ted Boutros. I think that's one of the dangers that we face right now. And there's been a lot of writing and discussion about how in authoritarian regimes and totalitarian regimes, one of the things that is used as a mechanism to exert power over the people is to confuse the facts and to say up is down and down is up. That's why journalism is so important right now, that true reporting, not blogging, I'm talking secondaries and tertiaries, is so important right now. Sticking to the facts, digging for the facts, don't stop focusing on a topic just because there's another topic that came along. Really? You thought I was the nicest? Sorry. Anyway, I was that shiny object for a minute. Okay, and that's important because that's what gets lost when we talk about the First Amendment. One of the main purposes of the First Amendment is to make sure that citizens have the information they need to make sensible decisions about how to govern themselves. If you use that premise, that is a crucial mechanism that we need the journalist community to help us achieve. We can't do it on our own. We need them to have the freedom to write it as they see it, get the facts, and let us know what's really going on. If you use that premise as a crucial mechanism, I think that getting the truth has never been more important than it is right now, and journalism is essential to that, and lawyers as well. I always come back to the relationship between what lawyers do and what journalists do. They are two of very few professions that are embedded in some way into our constitutional structure and are part of what we think of as the very fabric of our democratic system. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Ted Boutros! Get up here, Ted. Off the books, off the books.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Oh, you're so nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is really nice. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. It's what happens when you have a good person introduce you. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Kathy Griffin. You are brilliant. That was both hilarious and poignant, as she says she knows, and she is a true freedom of speech warrior, what she's been through, and it's going to be one of the themes tonight. I think we've already heard about what's going on in this country. I want to thank Suzanne and Michelle for tonight. And I also want to thank my colleagues from my law firm, Gibson Dunn, and my friends who are here tonight, and my wife, Helen, and my brother, Victor, are here. So it's just fun to be part of the PEN America family and to be here with everyone. I'm extremely grateful to PEN America for this honor. I've long admired the work that PEN does and its foundations and its formation, working to fight to protect the freedom to write and to create, and really protecting freedom of expression in all its glorious manifestations. Growing up in North Dakota, I wanted to be a writer. I started college at the University of North Dakota, which is at right on the border of Canada, and a really colorful short story writer from Mississippi named John Little taught creative writing and established a world-class writers conference that happened every spring, just as things were starting to thaw out in the otherwise super cold, flat, bleak Grand Forks, North Dakota. And so for a week every spring, there would be these literary luminaries. And they were fun the parties were very fun. And so I got to go to the parties, but also go to their readings and get to know some of them. And they were really an amazing list. June Jordan, Frederick Exley, Grace Paley, Edward Albee, Susan Sontag, James Dickey, Richard Wilbur, Ntozake Shange. It was just incredible, and for someone growing up in North Dakota to have those people come and share their work, it was just amazing. So it inspired me, and I wrote some poems and short stories, but you all know the end of the story. I didn't become a writer. I'm a lawyer. But as Kathy mentioned, lawyers have a lot of things in common with writers and journalists, and we write a lot. As a lawyer, we help the courts define and elaborate on what the legal philosopher Ronald Dworkin called the narrative consistency in the law. The judicial decisions of our nation, if you ever just plunge into them, they tell a sprawling story, and lawyers get to help write it. As a First Amendment lawyer, I've also had the privilege of representing writers, including journalists, including the legendary Associated Press reporter Linda Deutsch, who's here with us tonight, and my incredible client, Brian Karam, White House correspondent for Playboy magazine, who's also here tonight, with the table of the great editors and journalists from Playboy, and they have been so stalwart in supporting Brian when President Trump tried to take away his hard pass to cover the White House, and we had to go to court and get it back. And Brian brought his White House press credentials. He's here. He'll show it to you. We've got it. Those are fun cases because you actually get something back, and so he has it. And that episode, like President Trump's prior unsuccessful effort to take away Jim Acosta's press credentials, is reflective of the fact that we are living through a strange and especially dangerous time for First Amendment values. Suzanne mentioned many of these issues. We saw it in the opening video. But it's really weird because on the one hand, there's been an explosion of speech and expression in the United States and around the world. There's more speech in one day now than probably in all of human history if you go back about a decade. It's incredible because of the technological developments that provide the biggest megaphone in world history for speech. But at the same time, the First Amendment is under attack in this country, led by none other than the President of the United States. He's been taking full advantage of his First Amendment rights, the presidential bully pulpit, and his Twitter account to try to squelch freedom of speech and of the press. And it really isn't a political statement to say that. He revels in it. It's part of his platform to do these things. So I think it's perfectly appropriate for all of us to talk about it and to fight it. President Trump's done so many things that are direct assault on freedom of the press. He, during the campaign and since, he has declared that we should open up the defamation laws to make it easier for famous, powerful figures like himself to sue for tens of millions of dollars and to challenge news reports that he doesn't like. And that he knows that just the mere threat of such a lawsuit can chill important reporting. That's really the whole purpose of that kind of threat. He's repeatedly threatened to sue private citizens, including the women who accused him of sexual misconduct during the campaign, and threatened to sue news organizations for defamation. And he's incessantly branded the press the enemy of the people who purvey fake news, which is just so offensive and so outrageous. It's a disinformation campaign emanating from the White House that's meant to confuse the American citizenry. He has joked, sitting next to Vladimir Putin, that we need to get rid of the journalists, and Vladimir Putin has some experience in doing that. He refused to condemn the Saudi Arabian leadership for the murder and dismemberment of the Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. His words and actions have contributed to a climate of hostility and even violence towards the press. Journalists have been verbally abused and harassed online and in person. They've been physically assaulted, subjected to death threats with really shocking regularity, targeted with pipe bombs, and murdered in this country. In short, we are supposed to be the beacon for freedom of speech and freedom of the press. But President Trump is trashing the First Amendment, and that encourages and emboldens the same sort of behavior, and much worse, in other countries where they don't have our strong institutions and our tradition of freedom of the press. So it really is up to us, up to all of us, to uphold the rule of law in the First Amendment. The whole point of freedom of the press is to ensure that the American people get information they need to govern themselves and to make decisions about who the leaders of our country should be and what our policy should be. That includes holding government officials accountable and throwing them out of office if they abdicate their responsibilities or violate the Constitution. That's why we need a vigorous free press to protect our democracy, and that's why we need organizations like PEN America and nights like this. We need to both celebrate the First Amendment and fight to protect it every single day. Thank you again for this wonderful award. Thank you.
Okay, we're off to a great start. Congratulations again to Ted, and thank you to Kathy. So, arriving, I hope that you saw the Mont Blanc pen that we're raffling. How many people saw it? Raise your hands. Oh, let's get it up on the screen. The pen is valued at $2,800, which is more than I paid for my first car. So please, everyone, look at the pen. It is gorgeous. It could be yours. Raffle tickets are available on your table tablets or by flagging down a staff member. I will come down and sell you raffle tickets. You can also peek at and look at the silent auction items throughout the night. Are we getting too excited about the pen? I'm about to move on to the next award. Let's stop with the pen excitement. So for decades, the PEN America Literary Awards have honored outstanding voices across genres. With the help of our partners, PEN America confers over 20 distinct awards, fellowships, grants, and prizes each year. PEN America's Award for Television Excellence honors the year's best writing for the small screen. Here to present are Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists T. Christian Miller and Ken Armstrong.
Good evening, and thank you all so much for being here tonight. I'm T. Christian Miller, a reporter at ProPublica, and I'm on the stage tonight with my colleague, Ken Armstrong. And we have the privilege this year of introducing the PEN America Award for Television Excellence winners. That is Susanna Grant, Eilette Waldman, Michael Chabon, and Sarah Timmerman for the Netflix series Unbelievable. Now, one of the reasons that Ken and I are up here tonight is because we feel a little familiar and in good hands tonight. Because 4 years ago, PEN America saw fit to honor us as the people who wrote the newspaper story upon which Unbelievable, the series, was eventually based. After that story ran, Susanna and Sarah came to us and contacted our respective organizations. I was at ProPublica, and Ken was at the Marshall Project at the time, and asked, would we want to turn our story into a dramatic series? So we flew out to Los Angeles. We had a very Hollywood night. We had dinner at Shutters over in Santa Monica, and we were there with the team, and we were immediately impressed that they wanted to tell this story the way it should be told, with dignity, with honor, and with sensitivity to all the complexities of sexual assault. So the only question that we had as Ken and I left that dinner was, would they be able to pull this story off? And we are ecstatic tonight to be standing here to celebrate the answer, which is a resounding yes, absolutely. But we also know that our opinion is hardly the most important one, so I'll kick it over to Ken to finish off.
Thanks, Steve. At the heart of Unbelievable is a young woman named Marie who was sexually assaulted, then accused of making the story up. In September, Marie called me to say she had watched the series. She's now a long-haul driver. She drives an 18-wheeler. She started watching the series in her truck's bunk at 1 in the afternoon, and she just kept watching as afternoon turned to night. She told me she cried quite a bit. She said watching was hard, but she was glad that she did. The show captured her struggle perfectly, she said, and it also did something else. By allowing her to see, even in recreation, the arrest of the man who had raped her, the show provided her with closure. Marie had nothing but praise for the series, a true testament to the extraordinary care taken by Sarah, Susanna, Ayelet, and Michael, tonight's winners.
Now, please welcome Susanna Grant, Michael Chabon, Ayelet Waldman, and Sarah Timberman.
Hi, everybody. Michael and I are both PEN members. Like our collaborators, we're great supporters of this remarkable organization. So it is very moving for us, and we are so honored and grateful to be here today. We would like to express our gratitude to T. Christian Miller and Ken Armstrong, and to ProPublica and the Marshall Project, as well as to Robin Semien of This American Life. Your remarkable journalism, your years of effort are what made this show possible, and you are all doing the most heroic journalism in this time of great crisis in America and throughout the world, and we are entirely in your debt.
So as a producer, I am especially honored to be included up here at all in the company of these three completely extraordinary writers for what's really meant to be an evening that recognizes them, the writers, in this case, three who are passionately committed to sharing this story. I thank Netflix and PEN for including me. Much more importantly, thanks to PEN for steadfastly supporting journalism and truth in a time when both are under assault. I couldn't be more grateful to you. I want to second Ayelet and Michael's praise for Ken and T's remarkable piece, without which our series wouldn't exist at all. I'd also like to acknowledge the This American Life podcast that illuminated Marie's story and contributed so much to Unbelievable. Thanks to Ira Glass and Robin Semien for that. Robin served as an executive producer on Unbelievable, as does Katie Couric and my partner, Carl Beverly. All of them shared our passion for this story from the moment we first discussed it. That was also true of Netflix and CBS Studios, who recognized the urgency of telling Marie's story and of getting it right. There's no one I would have trusted more to get the story right than our showrunner, Susanna Grant, whose integrity as a storyteller is woven into the fabric of this show from beginning to end. So I'd like to pass this for her. And thanks to my writing partners for letting me be up here with them.
Thank you. And thank you to PEN America for recognizing our show. Receiving this in the company of people whose work I admire so much is a real honor. But this is a writing award, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the other writers on our team who are present here, Becky Mode and Jen Schur. We absolutely could not have done it without you. It was a real team effort, so thank you for all you brought to the show. For those of you who haven't seen Unbelievable, as Ken said, one of the storylines follows a young woman who goes by Marie, who, after reporting being raped, is forced to recant her rape and then charged by the police with false reporting. When I first read the story, I was absolutely stunned by it. It seemed unbelievable. It seemed so extraordinary. But over the course of researching and making the show, I came to realize it's actually not extraordinary at all. It happens all the time with sort of shocking regularity. Just last week, the Washington Post reported an article, reported a story about a young woman in Kansas who reported being raped to the police. But she had been drinking at the time, so they decided her account was suspect. And instead of investigating the accused rapist, they investigated her. She was arrested, handcuffs and all, and also charged with false reporting. This is a story that happens with alarming frequency in our culture. The difference in that case was that the media covered it. It was reported, and once it was aired publicly, the DA dropped the charges against her. So that is a great example of PEN's mission in action, the power of the word to change the world. When we released Unbelievable, we really didn't know what to expect. We knew we'd made a good show. We were proud of it, but we really had no idea if there was an audience that was interested in seeing it. Rape is a violent crime that we as a culture have spent a lot of energy not talking about. So it seemed entirely possible that our show, like so many victims of sexual assault, would be ignored. I am incredibly pleased to say that is not the case. The viewership for this show has exceeded ours and Netflix's wildest expectations. To me, that says that out there is a huge population of people who are hungry and eager to engage in the difficult conversations about the most entrenched injustices in our society. And that gives me hope. I'm also filled with hope when I think about the people who inspired this story. Edna Hendershot and Stacey Galbraith are the real detectives who are the inspiration for the other storyline, the one where victims are believed, where the investigation goes right, and where justice is served. They are shining examples of what law enforcement could and should be in our society. And the other is Marie. When she reported her rape, one of the many brutal aspects of the investigation was how many times she was forced to retell her story over and over to some anonymous law enforcement person or someone at the hospital, just over and over without any emotional support. The last thing she needed was to tell her story again, but she did, to Ken. Not because she wanted to, not because it was going to be easy for her. She did it because she thought that if she told her story, maybe somewhere down the road, someone else wouldn't have to endure what she did. So we are indebted to her for sharing her story with Ken and with us and with the world. So in absentia, I'd like to say thank you to Marie, and thank you to Stacey and Edna, and thank you to PEN America. Thanks very much.
So this was an incredibly special moment we just had. T. Christian Miller and Ken Armstrong back on the same stage to recognize the unbelievable team. Congratulations to you all. Really feels full circle to us. Something very cool coming up before dinner. We're going to feed you dinner then, I promise. Freedom of artistic expression is a fundamental human right and an indicator of a healthy and free society. PEN America's Artists at Risk Connection, which you can visit online, ensures that artists everywhere can live and work without fear by connecting artists to our global network of resources and amplifying their work. PEN America's Artistic Expression Award honors an individual who embodies achievement in artistic expression and the exercise of creative freedom. Please turn your attention toward the screens.
Her music teacher called her tone deaf, but she did not listen, and the rest is music history.
If you won't die if you don't do it, don't do it.
Probably the only time I'll ever echo Oprah. Please welcome Diane Warren.
Oh wow. Shit. Thank you. Wow, a standing ovation. I don't deserve one. The people that were on the stage before me deserve it, not me. Thank you, PEN USA, for everything you do. I wrote a little, I have stage fright, but I wrote a little thing. Is it okay if I mean, I don't know. I can't remember, and I get nervous in front of everybody. We're all writers, we're all weird freaks, right? You get it, all right. You know, we're solitary beings that are forced to not be solitary sometimes, and we fake it really well, like me. Anyways, I can't remember a time in my life I didn't want to be a writer. There was no plan B. I was going to be a songwriter and nothing else. There was no stopping me. My mom used to say, that's a beautiful song. My mom used to say, how will you make a living? That song's beautiful. Take it to Ralph's and see if they'll give you groceries for it. She didn't mean it in a mean way. It was just, how was someone from Van Nuys who barely graduated high school and was stoned most of the time when she was there going to make it as a songwriter? Well, I believe we make our own luck by working hard to be as great as you can be. Of course, you need some lucky breaks along the way, and I'm lucky to have had some of those. These songs are passports. They've taken me places I never dreamed I'd get to go. They got me here tonight, which is pretty fucking awesome. It still amazes me that a little song I write in my writing room that hasn't been cleaned this century, for real, over this century, I've never cleaned it, can have such a big impact. Maybe it will make someone feel less alone. Maybe it will make them feel happy. Maybe it will inspire someone to make a change, you know. And guess what? I can buy groceries with them. So that worked out. That's the power of words to paper and words to music. Thank you, PEN USA, for this honor. I'm not supposed to leave yet. I want to introduce Chrissy Metz, singing I'm Standing With You. And I'm dedicating this song to everybody that's out there on the front lines, keeping freedom of speech safe.
Hi. Ooh, it's been very emotional. So I'm gonna try to keep it going. Thank you. Thank you. When you're hurting, I want you to know that you'll never have to hurt alone. And when your faith is running low, I'll never lose faith in you. And when the night surrounds you and you think that no one cares about you, I will go and throw my arms around you. I'll be there through whatever you go through. I'm standing with you, and wherever you go to, I'll stand beside you. And when you think that all the odds are all against you, and you just feel like giving up, well, I won't let you. Through whatever you go through, I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. We all got times when we can't be strong, when it feels like our hope is gone. But I'm right here to lean on. I'll always be strong for you. And when you're feeling broken and it seems like every door is closing, I want you to know that mine's always open. I'll be there through whatever you go through. I'm standing with you. And wherever you go through, stand beside you. And when you think that all the odds are all against you, and you just feel like giving up, well, I won't let you. Through whatever you go through, I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. See, nothing you can do can move me. You can try, but you can't lose me. You can't lose me. Through whatever you go through, I'm standing with you. And wherever you go through, stand beside you. And when you think that all the odds are all against you, and you just feel like giving up, well, I won't let you. Through whatever you go through, I'm standing with you. 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 Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night.
That was so awesome. This was the first music performance in LitFest's 29-year history. Hello, every year. Moving forward, congratulations to Diane and thank you again to Chrissy. That was really incredible. I have two things left to say before we start dinner. I'd like to tell you about our Writers at Risk advocacy cases and our silent auction. So very briefly, if you joined us last year, you'll remember that during dinner, we wrote to imprisoned Reuters journalists Wallone and Cha So-u. Following the gala in December 2018, those cards were delivered directly into the hands of their families by a PEN America delegation to Myanmar, where we are helping to build up a new PEN Center to defend free expression in that emerging democracy. These are so cool. I'm happy to share that on May 7th of this year, after 511 days behind bars, Wallone and Cha So-u were released from prison. Here they are. So tonight, we'll write to 3 Saudi women, Lujain Al-Hathlul, Iman Al-Nafjan, and Noof Abdulaziz, recipients of our 2019 Freedom to Write Award. On March 28th, Iman was granted temporary release to return home to her family after almost a year in detention. However, Noof and Lujain remain in detention. All 3 women continue to face criminal charges. So on your tables, you'll see PEN America postcards and pens. We hope that you'll write a message of solidarity to Lujain, Iman, and Noof. When you've written your message, please take a photo of it and post it to social media, #LitFest Gala, and then place the card toward the center of your table. And we'll collect up all the cards, same as we did last year after the event, and deliver your messages. And we are sure, yes, oh, little teleprompter moment. We're sure that hearing from you offers an incredible boost to the spirits of jailed writers and their family members, so thank you so much for taking part. Shifting gears, for those of you who are interested in bidding in our silent auction, we have some amazing items, including Delta-level suite tickets to Lakers, Clippers, and Kings games at Staples Center, which include parking passes, which are like gold in Los Angeles. And please invite me if you win. I'm available to attend any of those games. We also have a Generation Wealth print by artist, photographer, and filmmaker Lauren Greenfield. Yes. The Stanley Kramer Centennial Script Collection. A staycation at Fairmont Miramar with dinner at Fig. We also have, the slides are not keeping up with me here. Here we go. And we also have a dinner and wine pairing and gift basket from Tartine. And this might be the coolest one, barista lessons for 4 with Howard Rodman in his home. Yes. You're gonna make coffee, you're gonna talk about books, it's gonna be great. So to bid, please use the tablet on your table, pick an item, tap place bid, and enter your information. Please select anonymous if you are saintly and don't want to be publicly recognized. Once your bid is submitted, keep your eyes on the screens and we'll update you. I know that no one's forgotten about the pen. The pen is still available. Buy raffle tickets. That's right. The volunteers are circulating if you need assistance, and the silent auction and raffle close at the end of dinner. So this is your moment. We're going to announce the winners after dinner, and then we'll announce the raffle at the end of the night. Okay, let's eat. All right, this is always a difficult time. Everyone's always excited. You're talking about the pen, I know. Okay, here we are. Okay, so the silent auction and raffle are now closed. Thank you all for your generosity. Let's see who won the auction. Oh, here we go. Congrats, winners. Oh, now I know who to see for basketball tickets, Miranda. This is great. So fun. Okay, here we go. All right. Congratulations, winners. And thank you all for participating. The funds from tonight make our work possible. At a fundamental time when the role of a strong and free press in our democracy is under assault, our next award reflects exactly why we must stand together in its defense. The PEN Dan Eldon Courage in Journalism Award honors the legacy of Dan Eldon by recognizing a journalist or media organization whose groundbreaking reporting on human rights abuses serves to strengthen the public's ability to respond to and protect against further abuses. This award also helps to fund our Penn in the Community journalism program in Title I schools, which will introduce students to journalism and offer participants the opportunity to publish a school newspaper. We are grateful to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which seeded this program earlier this year, and are looking forward to expanding this new initiative in partnership with Creative Visions Foundation.
Dan Eldon is a legend. I think Dan Eldon was photographer, poet, war journalist.
Now on the outskirts of southern Mogadishu.
This incredible 22-year-old man.
The drums.
Here to present the inaugural Penn Dan Eldon Courage in Journalism Award is teacher, journalist, author, producer, founder of Creative Visions, and Dan Eldon's dazzling mother, Kathy Eldon.
Thank you. Okay. I have been thinking tonight, I'm ignoring those things, I hate them. I've been thinking tonight about the power of words, words that people put together to tell stories. And stories can either ignite action or sometimes they can create a reaction. Dan, my son, died to tell a story. But around the world, and I'm looking at Julie, there are people, legions of journalists, who are dying to tell important stories, knowing that they can be silenced or subjugated for speaking truth to power. Often, they are harassed. They face the loss of their reputation or their livelihood, or worse. Today, we're honoring one of the strong, important truth tellers, Julie K. Brown. And it's really her determination, her perseverance in pursuing the Jeffrey Epstein story reflects, thank you, absolutely. It reflects the highest principles of journalistic excellence in pursuit of the public interest, and we are extremely grateful. Despite the complexity of that reporting puzzle and the powerful forces arrayed, summoned to protect the guilty, Julie persisted. Her work alongside the editors and her colleagues at the Miami Herald really demonstrate the absolute importance of investigative journalism, which starts locally but can impact globally. And it's just a slight commercial for the LA Times. If you haven't renewed your subscription, do it tonight, please. So now, on behalf of the courageous victims whose stories are now being told, my daughter Amy Eldon Turteltaub and Creative Visions have the great honor and privilege of presenting the first ever Dan Eldon Penn Courage in Journalism Award to Julie K. Smith Brown. Thank you.
I almost feel like a movie star. I'm a little bit like Diane. I'm a little nervous. Not good at this and definitely not doing that. I'm used to hiding behind my computer in a little room like you probably have. And so this is pretty overwhelming, amazing, especially I just want to do a shout out to all the really powerful, wonderful, courageous women in this room, you know, doing such great work and art and, you know, writing and music, and it's just, it's really amazing. And for more than 2 decades, Jeffrey Epstein was able to sexually assault and rape hundreds, if not thousands, of underage girls and young women around the world. Though he was in his 50s and 60s, few people questioned his relationships with these girls or why they surrounded him at social events and late-night parties, often sitting in his lap when they should have been studying or attending high school football games. Jeffrey Epstein got away with this crime because nearly every element of society allowed him to get away with it. There were his neighbors who looked the other way, the doctors and dentists he took his victims to for birth control and teeth whitening, the pilots on his plane, the celebrities and journalists whom he invited to his mansion, and the bevy of brilliant minds in science, technology, arts, finance, who admired and envied his wealth and flair with young women. In short, no one said anything. Even when it became clear to authorities in 2005 that Epstein was raping these young girls, the people in our criminal justice system who were supposed to protect children not only looked the other way, they worked in concert with Epstein's lawyers to help cover up the scope of his crimes and shield an untold number of others involved in his trafficking operation. Jeffrey Epstein, however, is only a symptom of a much larger problem in this country and around the world. The reality is that human trafficking and the sexual exploitation of women and children is an epidemic. Technology and the internet has made sex trafficking and sexual exploitation the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, generating more than $100 billion in profit. Most sex trafficking victims are not flown around in jets or housed on Caribbean islands. Some 97% of its victims are women and girls, and most are poor and of color. Few victims have the ability to escape or report their abuse, and law enforcement agencies have long treated them not as victims, but as willing participants, prostitutes, criminalizing the very victims who should be offered safety and resources. Girls who work on the streets are often dismissed as drug addicts without society ever thinking about why they're on the streets in the first place. Many of them are trafficked and work long hours for men who are brutal, threatening them and their families. The story of Jeffrey Epstein's survivors gave a window not only into how the criminal justice system works in favor of men, powerful men, but how society as a whole allows these devastating human rights violations against women and children. Just as accusations of sexual predation dogged Epstein for decades, it continues to dog other powerful men, including many who work among us in some of the most influential positions in media, entertainment, and the arts. I'm honored to receive this award named for a passionate journalist who risked his life to expose the human costs of war and was a courageous crusader for vulnerable people that the world often ignores. Journalists like Dan Eldon can only expose our world's failures. It takes activists, lawyers, thinkers, leaders, and courageous individuals to bring social and political change. Now is the time for all of us in the media to stand up and call all these sexual predators and their enablers into account. Thank you.
Can we do it again? Can we do it again?
Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce screenwriter, educator, former WGA president, PEN America LA committee member, and author, most recently, of the novel The Great Eastern. Please welcome Howard Rodman.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate PEN America's mission and work. And the PEN Dan Eldon Courage in Journalism Award is just one of the examples we'll hear about tonight. PEN America would not exist without you, our members and supporters, in this moment of unprecedented challenges to open discourse, to free press, to the truth. PEN America is asking for your help. Your support tonight is crucial to our ongoing work, especially as we look ahead to a year when free expression rights, so essential to our democracy, will be put to the test as never before. Your support benefits writers, journalists, artists under threat or imprisoned worldwide, advocacy and legal action to protect the First Amendment, landmark research on subjects ranging from what to do to save local news coverage to the constriction of free expression in China, and the opportunity to support and share great writing of every genre through literary festivals, fellowships, awards, and more. We ask you to stand with us. This is the work that you make possible. As writers, readers, and to use that awful word, creatives, we have the power to reclaim the narratives, knowing that stories we tell and art we make connects us as people. It helps others understand how we see the world and helps us understand how others see the world. What is a novel but an empathy machine? A place we're taken to see the world through a different set of eyes. Words define and alter our day-to-day experience. As Tristan Zara said, the thought forms itself in the mouth. And the impact these words have on society is palpable, is everlasting. Words matter, but so do actions. Tonight, together with pessimism of the intellect and optimism of the will, we can celebrate and protect our most precious and essential freedoms. Every dollar raised this evening will help PEN America continue to stand with writers and artists whose expression puts them at risk. Bring forward the voices and work of those who have been silenced or marginalized or ignored, and support provocative, engaged programming tackling consequential public issues here in Los Angeles and across the United States. As Leonard Cohen said, as I say now, as I urge you to chant along with me, it's coming to America first, the cradle of the best and the worst. It's coming like the tidal flood beneath the lunar sway, imperial, mysterious, in amorous array. Democracy is coming to the USA, but only with your help. Last year, we raised $75,000 in this room, so let's see if we can exceed that. Allow me to now channel my inner Carney Barker. For those of you who need some motivation, the first table to fully participate tonight at any dollar amount will receive season's tickets for PEN's 2019 Presents series, as well as LA Phil passes. First table that's complete, any amount. The first person to make a donation of $10,000 tonight will receive a stunning portrait of Toni Morrison by Beowulf Sheehan. The winner will have an option to meet Beowulf later this year when he's in LA to have the portrait signed. But wait, there's more. The individual who gives the single highest gift tonight, no less than $15,000, will receive this extraordinary 18-karat yellow gold Freedom of Expression medallion. Foundry designer Beth Budaiche, with the input of award-winning author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, created only 40 of these to benefit PEN America, and with your incredibly generous support of free expression this evening, one can be yours. Are you ready to add your voice at any level? Next slide, please. 10,000 to protect free expression, 5,000 to stand with artists at risk, 2,500 to underwrite PEN America's literary programs, 1,000 to amplify marginalized voices, 500 to support writers and journalists in schools. Your donation tablets are live. Here they are. Press Make a Pledge. There are your pledges. Volunteers are circulating throughout the room. If you need help or if you'd prefer to give by check, please flag someone down. Let's see what we all can do in the next 7 minutes. Remember, select anonymous if you don't want to be recognized on the screen. We will only count donations made during these 7 minutes for these prizes, so start donating now. Let's do this. The amount of money we're raising will appear on the screen in real time. The money is going to directly fund PEN America's advocacy and literary programs. If your table's trying to score the full participation prize, raise your hand when everyone at the table is donated so we can confirm your donations. I want to see a sea of green. Your donations tonight will help to protect the First Amendment, advocate for censored and imprisoned writers around the world, provide resources to artists at risk, stage literary programs like PEN in the Community, World Voices Festival and fellowships like Emerging Voices and more, amplify lesser heard voices with new platforms. Any amount you can give will make a difference in our effort to protect writers, artists, and journalists. Support writers and journalists in schools. And if you have an extra $25,000 burning a hole in your pocket, you could sustain one of PEN America's local programs, literary arts programs, for an entire year. And who might go home with the medallion? Raymond Chandler once said, "The best writing in English today is done by Americans. They have knocked over the tombs and sneered at the dead, which is as it should be. There are too many dead men, and there is too much talk about them." Your support for PEN this Halloween week reclaims the language and the world from the dead hand of dead men. The only way to guarantee the victory of the empire of death is to sit on your hands for the next 6 minutes. With your additional support this evening, we can continue to demand answers in the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi and mobilize to ensure that the quest for accountability for this brutal crime continues. We can build and fortify PEN Myanmar, PEN Ukraine, PEN Belarus, PEN Hong Kong, and other centers in the PEN International Network as forces on the front lines fight for free expression and democratic rights. We can go to court to sue Donald Trump for trying to use institutions of state to retaliate against journalists when he doesn't like their reporting. We can empower women, people of color, LGBTQ writers, journalists nationwide, targeted by the censoring forces of online trolling. We can investigate the impact of fraudulent news on our public discourse. We can work on college campuses to ensure a rising generation doesn't become alienated from the very concept of free speech. Let us be inspired and given courage by the writers and editors at Deadspin when this week the venture capitalist that bought Deadspin told them only to write about sports and not to mess around with culture or politics. They resigned en masse. They sacrificed their livelihoods, their securities, their careers. Surely we can sacrifice some cash. 47,000. Do I hear 48,000? So okay. So can I announce 50,000? Can I announce 50,000? Some wonderful person just gave $10,000.
Table 11 gave all.
Table 11, all of them have given. Let's hear it for table 11. And I believe we now have, we're lagging behind the tote board, but I believe we now have $50,000 donated tonight. Let's see if we can beat last year's total of 70,000. If there ever were a year to do it, it's 2019. We can support writers who are incarcerated to tell their stories as only they can. We can bring our online harassment self-defense training to newsrooms where reporters, especially women and people of color, are being subjected to devastating vitriol aimed at silencing them. We can make possible mentorships that enable young dreamers to develop their own voices through poetry, prose, and fiction. As Viet Nguyen so essentially and eloquently points out, no one should be compelled to be a voice for the voiceless. The solution is simple. Everyone should have a voice. The work of PEN builds a world where that can be made manifest. We can research how local news coverage is being hollowed out, what that means for our communities and keeping watch in government, and what the options are for reversing this trend. We can mobilize Hollywood to resist censorship from foreign governments. We can continuously monitor and challenge the politicians, the police forces, and partisans who would deny us our First Amendment rights. As Joan Didion said, we tell ourselves stories in order to live. Even in 2019, especially in 2019, nothing is more vital. With so much to do, with so much at stake, we cannot possibly do these things alone, but we can do them together. Are we on time? Out of what? I'm going to do 2 minutes. Okay.
2 minutes.
Only 2 minutes left. Please get your bids in. '19 is the 200th anniversary. Can we rewind the teleprompter? Yep. 2019 is the 200th anniversary of the birth of Herman Melville. In a year where America itself seems to incarnate Melville's phrase, "Thou all-destroying but unconquering whale," let us take out our weapons, the checkbook, the credit card, and the tablet, and with our checkbooks, stand up to that all-destroying beast, and with our credit cards, stand up to the whiteness of the whale, and with our contributions, say with me now, "From hell's heart I stab at thee." Come on. From hell's heart I stab at thee. Before all is lost, let us defeat the Leviathan with your generosity of spirit. As Jennifer Egan reminds us, time's a goon, so put in your bids now. Okay. Wow. PEN America, thanks you for your generosity. We'll announce the winners later in the program. Please pay via the link on your phone or stop by the payment desk on your way out. I'd like now to welcome to the stage PEN America President and Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist, Jennifer Egan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jennifer Egan, President of PEN America. Very happy to be with you. It's been 2 years now since our West and East Coast branches united into a single organization, and that fusion has done a lot more for PEN America than just increase our glamour quotient, although thank you for that, and give us New Yorkers an excuse to wear colored clothing. Our unification was a first step toward the goal of becoming a truly national organization dedicated to fostering literary communities wherever they exist, insisting upon their cultural and civic importance, encouraging the dialogue and engagement that are inevitable features of the public life of books, and protecting the freedoms that make all of this possible. Tonight's celebration would not have been possible without our heroic presenting sponsors, and I want to thank again Jamie Wolf and the Rosenthal Family Foundation. Enormous thanks as well to our leadership sponsors, Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, Ted and Helen Boutros, Latham and Watkins, and Marvin and Carrie Putnam. And to our benefactors, Apple, Creative Visions Foundation, and the Muriel Palia Foundation. And thank you to all of you for being here tonight and supporting our work through your very presence and enthusiasm. American Letters suffered an unfathomable loss this year with the passing of Toni Morrison last August. Toni Morrison was a longtime PEN America member and supporter. She was, of course, the winner of the 1993 Nobel Prize for Literature, and also the recipient of several awards from PEN America, including the 2008 PEN Literary Service Award and the 2016 PEN Saul Bellow Award. Her towering literary and cultural contributions are unparalleled, and her work will influence countless generations to come. To celebrate her life and legacy, actor and activist LeVar Burton will join us. LeVar Burton's storytelling work has impacted generations of American youth. He made his film acting debut as Kunta Kinte in the award-winning 1977 miniseries Roots, a major event of my childhood. After which he created Reading Rainbow, the book-centered children's show that would win over 200 broadcast awards, including 26 Emmys, and become America's most used classroom television resource. In 2017, as if that weren't enough, he started the podcast LeVar Burton Reads, which has been dubbed Reading Rainbow for Adults. Burton narrates stories from writers like Octavia Butler and Ray Bradbury. A told story will forever have power, Burton has said. Words to live by. His dedication to language, its joys and its capacity, is visionary and vital in our times. Please welcome LeVar Burton.
evening. Toni Morrison was ours. I mean, she shared her wisdom, her talent, her truth with the world at large, but first and foremost, she was unreservedly, unashamedly, and always unapologetically black. She wrote about the dreams our ancestors had for us, about the dreams we have for our children and of those we hold for ourselves. She wrote about the myriad ways we love and our stoic perseverance through loss after pain-filled loss. The lens through which she explored humanity was colored by colored people. She embraced us, championed us, spoke to us and for us, and in turn, we served as her inspiration, her subject matter, her muse. Through both actions and attitude, in word and in deed, she represented us with effortless nobility on the world stage. A literary lioness, she suffered no fools and took no prisoners in the service of elucidating for the white world the puniness of prejudice and the pervasive nature of their ever-present privilege. She once famously took a young melanin-challenged journalist, that's code for white people. She took this young woman to task for asking her if she ever intended to write a substantial Caucasian character in one of her books. And when the girl persisted, pressing her point about the deficiencies in Toni's canon, Toni implacably replied, and I will quote her here, "You can't understand how powerfully racist that question is, can you? Because you would never ask a white author, when are you going to write about black people, whether he did or not, whether she did or not. Even the inquiry comes from a position of being in the center and being used to being in the center." She went on to say, being an African-American writer is sort of like being a Russian writer who writes in Russian for Russians. And the fact that it gets translated and read by other people is a benefit, it's a plus, but he's not obliged to ever consider writing about French people or Americans or anybody else. Toni didn't play. Her narratives were populated with people who looked like me. Her stories celebrated those living in the margins, the invisible and the oppressed. She elevated us with her prose, illuminating in the process the deep and abiding humanity of her characters. She was a voracious reader. She reveled in the written word. She wielded words like a sword and shield, slaying the dragons of racism, sexism, exclusion, and discrimination with dispatch and extreme prejudice. She was a colossus, standing astride the worlds of both the black community and that of the literary cognoscenti. She was fluent in the language of both constituencies, yet confined by neither, rising instead to the level of master interpreter of humanity and our condition, the depravity and divinity of both body and soul. Growing up, it was not all that common for me, a chubby, bespectacled bookworm of a kid, to encounter heroes in the pages of the books I devoured who looked like me. Toni Morrison was a revelation. She wrote about people and places and situations that were familiar to me. Like my own mother, she was a daughter of the Midwest. And in her writing, I could hear the rhythms and speech and familiar turns of phrase used by my aunts, uncles, and cousins. She chronicled the great migration of black people up and out of the clutches of the South and our movement to somewhat safer environs in the North. My own family was shaped by a desire to escape the South and its adherence to its antebellum ways, and I could recognize the striving of my maternal grandparents in her work. In her words, I could almost taste my grandmother's sweet yet savory sausage, which was a blend of the beef and pork they raised themselves on their small family farm on the outskirts of Kansas City, Missouri. In characters formed by her loving hand, I could see my mother, Irma Jean, who graduated from Philander Smith, an historically black college in Little Rock, Arkansas, the first person in her family ever to go to college. In her work, I saw myself. She helped to validate my very existence. At the very vanguard of the importance of representation in the media, she understood all too well that absent positive portrayals in the popular culture of oneself, a child is sent a soul-crushing message. A message that says, you have no value. You have no importance in this world. Her characters were fully formed and unforgettable. In The Bluest Eye, she gave us Pecola, a Midwestern black girl driven mad by her inability to achieve the standard of beauty she so coveted. Macon Dead Jr. in Song of Solomon, prodigal son of the family dead, also known as Milkman because he suckled at his mother's breast until he was 4. Setha, a mother living with the self-inflicted wound of abject grief and the ghost of her daughter killed by her own hands that she had called beloved. In my experience, there are people and there are folks. Toni, she wrote about folks. She began her illustrious writing career relatively late in life. She had already had careers as a wife, a mother, a college professor, and as an editor, first of textbooks and then moving to New York to become the first black female editor of fiction at Random House. While there, she helped shape the early works of Angela Davis and Black Panther leader Huey P. Newton, among others. When her first book was released in 1970, I was an impressionable 13-year-old. And in a career that spanned some 50 years, I could always count on her to release another title, another literary lifeline that erased the sting of living in and loving a country that did not love me back. Eminently quotable, she leaves us with some of the most memorable lines in literature. The function of freedom is to free someone else. If you don't see the book you want to read, then you must write it. There is nothing more to say except why. But since why is so difficult to handle, one must take refuge in how. And perhaps my favorite, the one that always causes me to think of my own beloved, another daughter of the Midwest, my wife of 30 years, Stephanie Kozart-Berg. She is a friend of my mind. She gather me, man. She gather the pieces that I am and give them back to me in all the right order. It's good, you know, when you got a woman who is a friend of your mind. Over the course of her life's work, she had bestowed upon her virtually every award of note a writer can receive. The National Critics Circle Award, a Pulitzer, a Nobel Prize in Literature, the French Legion of Honor, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, given to her by Barack Obama. I miss Obama. If you miss Obama, can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? She had a glorious and long-standing relationship with this very organization which brings us all together tonight, and received, as was mentioned just before, the Penn Saul Bellow Award for Achievement in American Fiction, and these are but a few. Trust and believe, she had a lot of prizes. And her legacy can be found in the spiritual DNA she passes on to readers and writers and thinkers and dreamers who will read her words for generations to come. In her passing, she rightfully joins the ranks of the most influential humans to ever walk this earth. My ultimate takeaway from the celestial gift that Madame Morrison was is this: that if we can sit long enough in the presence of one another and be open to the experience of hearing one another's story, we can discover the things that we share in common with those who only moments ago we had considered the other and somehow unworthy of our time. We have all, I believe, been made better by her presence among us. May her wisdom, her guidance, and her incredible stories inform, inspire, and sustain us going forward in what are certain to be very difficult days ahead. Thank you.
And now, to present the award for Screenplay Excellence, please welcome Susan Kalechi Watson.
How do you follow LeVar Burton? Like this. Good evening, everyone. I am honored to present the PEN America Award for Screenplay Excellence to Micah Fitzsimmons Blue and Noah Harpster. Woo! A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is a film about one of America's most beloved figures, told through the eyes and words of a journalist. In 1998, following the 28th season of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Tom Juno was assigned to profile Fred Rogers for a November issue of Esquire magazine celebrating heroes. The resulting profile, can you say hero, draws on Tom's own memories of being a child once too, and inspired Micah and Noah to bring the story of the resulting personal transformation to the big screen. In a distressing media landscape, the film's thoughtful telling of Tom Juno's friendship with Fred Rogers is an encouragement toward kindness, empathy, and care. As Fred Rogers wrote, taking care is one way to show your love. Another way is letting people take good care of you when you need it. The film celebrates the importance of the care and connection created through stories, an effort at the very heart of PEN America's mission. Please welcome Micah Fitzsimmons Blue and Noah Harpster.
Thank you, Susan. Sure, you can stand back there. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, PEN America, and to all of you for this incredible, unbelievable honor. We would not be here without our families and our wives, Robin and Liba, and our manager of 13 years, Alex Lerner. I also saw Franklin Leonard out there, one of the first people to believe in us and our script, so it's nice that you're here. I'd also like to thank Tom Juno and Joanne Rogers, Fred's widow, for trusting us. This has been a 10-year process. She sat with us for hours, answering our questions, sharing her stories of Fred, and ultimately only had one demand, that we not portray her husband as a saint, but as a real human who had real problems just like us, and maybe could we get Tom Hanks? 10 years ago, this began when I had a toddler and a newborn, and I was trying to get my toddler to do, anything I asked her. And one day, out of desperation, I pulled up a YouTube clip of Fred Rogers, and in his slow voice, he was saying, anything mentionable is manageable. And she began listening to him intently, more so than she ever would ever listen to me. And the next day I walked into our office, which was really a coffee shop where we were stealing Wi-Fi. And I said, Micah, I've discovered a warlock that speaks toddler, and I think we need to write about him.
We're the same size on the page. So, 10 years later, Fred has become part of our lives, not merely as the subject of our movie, but a guide along the way. He helped us to be better fathers to our children. He helped me overcome my fear of puppets. And he taught us how to slow down and be kind to others and ourselves. And as the writers in this room know, we rarely reserve our best selves for ourselves. But perhaps more than anything, Fred has served as a rare beacon of light in a dark time, an antiseptic for cynicism and despair, a role model when there aren't many to go around these days, and in his own quiet, persistent way, a champion for the freedom of expression. Our movie is about a journalist whose life is in shambles when he's given an assignment, which is to profile Fred Rogers. And in the course of our research, we were digging around in the boxes at the Fred Rogers Archive in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, when this little scrap of paper one day floats out. We pick it up and read it, and it seems to be tailor-made for tonight. It wasn't written for publication or for any speech. It was written in Fred's own handwriting, and it reads, journalists, it was about you guys. Journalists are human beings, not automatons. Journalists have a duty to let their outrage show through when they come across injustice. Journalists need to let their compassion show through for other people's suffering. And journalists need to let their wonder show through when they witness the glory of life. We never expected this film to take as long as it did to come to fruition. Perhaps we thought we were waiting for this moment. Instead, maybe this moment was waiting for Fred Rogers. Thank you.
Each year, all over America, PEN America presents a robust calendar of conversations that traverse cultures and boundaries. And we present programs aimed at amplifying stories that might otherwise go unheard. For example, our prison and justice writing program provides resources, mentors, and audiences to writers who are incarcerated. And we come together in Los Angeles to support the Emerging Voices Fellows here. Would Emerging Voices Fellows and mentors, all of you, please stand? This remarkable group, 151 in all, 151 alumni in all, have published more than 65 books and hundreds of essays, stories, and poems since 1995. We should all be so productive. Well done. PEN America's Voice of Influence Award honors individuals who have made extraordinary efforts to advocate not only for truth, but for those who have been silenced for their efforts to tell it. Thanks to the Muriel Palia Foundation for underwriting this award, and here to present this evening's Voice of Influence Award is actor, director, and producer Blair Underwood.
Ava DuVernay. Ava DuVernay. Yes. Even the name sounds classic and elegant. Though her face, I always say to her that, I say, you know, Ava, you look like a movie star. You have the smile of a movie star. But what she does, though she is a star, she creates stars by putting them in her powerful, amazing, incredible projects. It is a pleasure and an honor to be at PEN America's LitFest Gala presenting visionary director, screenwriter, and activist Ava DuVernay. Yes. With this year's Voice of Influence Award for her tireless efforts to explore the lesser heard, often suppressed sides of historical events, love, life, and humanity. Stating that news is the invitation to ask the next question, Ava worked briefly in journalism before turning to filmmaking to create her highly acclaimed documentary and narrative films. The New York Times wrote of her Academy Award-nominated film, Selma. Did you hear that Academy Award-nominated film, Selma? Which follows the 1965 Alabama marches for black voting rights. They said it hums with suspense and surprise. It is a triumph of efficient, emphatic cinematic storytelling, a reminder both of progress made and promises unkept. Ava's 13th, about the 13th Amendment, won the Primetime Emmy Award, yes. She's a bad sister, isn't she? Won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Documentary, with Odie Henderson of Roger Ebert calling it an unflinching, well-informed, and thoroughly researched look at the American system of incarceration, specifically how the prison industrial complex affects people of color. When They See Us, which I know a little bit something about, Ava's brilliant drama miniseries inspired by the 1989 Central Park jogger case was released this May to international acclaim, including 16 Emmy nominations. Daniel Feinberg of The Hollywood Reporter praised When They See Us for avoiding the typical triumph over adversity narrative tropes and for demonstrating a rigorous attempt to chronicle an epic legal failure and to help restore the sense of the men as individuals rather than faceless members of a wrongfully accused collective. In addition to filmmaking, as if she had any more time, Ava runs Array, an independent distribution company collaborating with grassroots black film organizations to oversee publicity of films such as the BP oil spill documentary, Vanishing Pearls, and Murata, How Mum Decolonized the Screen. As might also be said of Ava's approach to her own films, Array's strategy is, as Ava said, to further foster the black cinematic image in an organized and consistent way, and to not have to defer and ask permission to traffic our films to be self-determining. Now, what most people don't know about Ava is that she started off as a rapper. For real. MC Eve, the original woman. So yes, she started off writing bars, spitting lyrics, and yes, she can absolutely rap with the best of them, and she can flow. I share that with you because at her artistic core, she's a storyteller who, in whatever she touches, weaves an unforgettable tapestry with eloquence, artistry, integrity, and gravitas, draped in the regal positivity that is Ava. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to recognize and salute my dear friend, the incomparable Miss Ava DuVernay.
Thank you so much. Very kind. That sounded like Glory. Was that Glory? It's nice to walk around in the Glory place when I walk in a room. It's It's like my song. Anyway, I'm fresh. This is the fresh look from the editing room look, like the get dressed in the car look. Because my good friends at Warner Brothers, who have a table here, I'm on a deadline for them, but we're all here together. That's how much we care about PEN America. So we all got our clothes on and came back. Thank you to everyone at Warner Brothers for being here. It's really lovely to just have a place to call home, and that's my artistic home, so I appreciate them. And thank you to Blair. This is not a Hollywood actor introduces someone they don't know kind of situation. This is like my brother, my champion. I made a film called I Will Follow. First of all, I was a publicist for several movies and TV shows that he was in, and got to know him there, and he was just a really nice person. He was the first actor that I met who treated me as a publicist kindly, you know, not as less than. He was a big star then as he is now, and he was just always very lovely to all of us. And so when I wrote my first little film that I made for $50,000, which is not a lot to make a movie, I slipped him the script and asked him if he would come and work for a couple of days. I can't even believe I asked him, and I cannot believe he said yes. But he was in my very first $50,000 film for the publicist on a TV show. And he came and he did it. And he treated me like a real director. It was the first time I said cut and action was with Blair Underwood, right? And just what a thrill. And then most recently, I basically offer him everything I write, and he's always busy. But this last time he was available, and so we worked together on When They See Us. I just had to tell you and take this opportunity to tell you I really love you, brother, and I thank you for always, always being in my corner. Truly. And just a thank you to all the honorees tonight, and what an honor to be asked here today to accept this award from PEN America. Thank you, Michelle Frankie and Jennifer Egan and everyone involved. PEN America's LitFest Gala, I just want to make sure everyone really understands, it's the 29th anniversary of this gala. It's a celebration of free expression and literature, and the funds raised here really fuel advocacy for writers and journalists and artists who are under threat. And if we thought they were under threat before, they're really under threat now. And so this is a space where we can provide some safety and again, advocacy for these groups. So if you haven't given, please consider doing so. It's one of the checks that I write every year with pride. This esteemed group stands shoulder to shoulder with other groups and grassroots movements that have stepped into the gap that we're in now, that we have to boldly and bravely move forward through to fight with righteousness, this ignorance that is so pervasive. And so a lot of people ask me, how does it feel to be an artist and an activist? Like, how do you reconcile those two things? I get asked that question so often, and I love it because I have a great answer for it. This is it. I say, to me, they're one and the same. To be an artist, you must imagine and create and world build. And to an activist, you must do the same, because an activist has to imagine a world that isn't there and make it so. Activism is art, and art is activism. To write, to create, to hold space, to represent and establish representation for others, to do these things, especially at this time, is a radical act. Creating space for others in our lives, in our work, in our communities is not easy, but we must, and we do and we will. And I thank PEN America for recognizing that striving in me, and I dedicate this award tonight to those artists and activists who will never get to a beautiful fancy room like this, whose craft and whose community building remains potent and dynamic, but in the shadows. And I just ask that may the light in this room somehow reach them in this moment. And for all of us, I'd like to leave us with words that resonate deeply with me from the great writer and thinker Audre Lorde. She wrote, "When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak." Thank you very much. Thank you.
Following very much on what Ava was saying, I want to close by returning to the idea of literary expression, whether it takes place in a writer's room or a newspaper office or a university or some little nook you've managed to carve out for that purpose as a civic act. In a way, it's counterintuitive. Why should our storytelling, which we do for fun too, as much as anything else, why should it matter in this larger way? Well, autocrats clearly know the answer to this question, because writers are among the first people they try to jail and silence. Dictators are afraid of writers because they recognize that literary expression embodies complexity, ambiguity, and contradictory ideas, all of which threaten the simplistic mind control that is essential to sustaining a dictatorship. Good writing encourages us to think deeply, question authority, and look at the world from points of view other than our own. And a community of readers and writers, like the one here in this room tonight, is a bulwark of democracy. Thank you to all of the writers here for keeping our minds quick and alive so that we can recognize tyranny when we see it and make responsible choices for ourselves, our country, and our planet. And now, on to prize winners. First, I want to have one last round of applause for all of our tremendous honorees, winners, and sponsors. And now the moment I know you've all been waiting for. The winner of the Mont Blanc pen is a fellow Jenny Rowe, R-H-O. You won. Hold on to that pen. And the winner of the Beowulf Prize, the photograph of Toni Morrison, is Mark E. Pollock. Congratulations. With tonight's in-room fundraising, we have surpassed our fundraising total of last year. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to everyone here for your tremendous generosity throughout the night. If you have yet to make a donation to Pan America Night tonight, you'll be doubtless wondering how you can immediately do so on your way out or, in fact, through the rest of the year. And the answer is go on pen.org. It is very easy. Don't forget your book bag. Pan America supports you hugely. You are champs. And thank you all for helping us to protect all of our expressive freedoms. Thank you, stay safe, and have a good night.